Yo, MC Starman here with Diana Robinson.
And my time comptoir.
Excuse me. Wow. So, all right, we'll try to sing it. Mercury retrograde, Venus in Scorpio, the winter solstice, Pluto enters into Aquarius, and a happy new year. Happy oh ho ho. Wow. How's that for a beginning? Want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel, for sharing, for commenting. So many nice comments. We're about to get to 1,300 subscribers. Thanks. And also hitting the like button really helps as well, massaging the algorithms. And so, start with Mercury retrograde. How are you doing, Diana?
That just happened. I'm doing good. Definitely felt a lot of those shifts in the beginning of your little song there. The new moon and then Mercury going retrograde yesterday, I guess. And even just the days leading up, Mercury is definitely slowing down. My mind is, it's like being on a high gear and trying to pedal. No, on a low gear and trying to pedal fast is kind of how I feel like my brain's working.
Also, trying to don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Been big. Also, Scorpio, Venus, that's intense.
That's brought on a lot of emotions. Yeah.
Then Mercury retrograde, and then that new moon in Sagittarius. To me, it felt like all the air got sucked out of life. It's like, what? I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but energy-wise, it was like, woo. So just starting to feel back into ourselves, and then the winter solstice is arriving. So how's that feeling for you?
Feeling like you're going into the eye of the needle a bit for me personally. I just feel like very full and busy, and yet and although Christmas is a wonderful celebration time, it's also a time I crave a lot more alone time. So there's this like tightening happening. But it is, yeah, it's a good journey. One thing that's getting me through is knowing that the days are about to get longer in about a week. So that's exciting. We can have 2 weeks, so it'll really start.
Big shift down the winter solstice. It's a big, important holiday. I wanted to talk to everybody about this word, this lovely word that I really love, from Jung's work, the word apotropaic. Apotropaic, we're going to show you the dictionary definition at the end of this video. But from a Jungian perspective, what apotropaic means is to combat or to work towards mental health. And, or in a more psychological term, integrating your neurosis, your craziness, that don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy thing, work to your mental health through apotropaic means. And I know we talked about that a lot. So what does that mean? A simple definition or a broad definition using Jungian psychology, it's to use the power of ritual magic as a tool for mental health. We can take antidepressant, or we can have apotropaic means or rituals, the practice of rituals. And what does that do, really? How does this help us with our mental health?
I feel like it grounds us into an experience versus just spinning our wheels in our mind. When you actually do something tangible, you drop back into your body versus just being in your brain. So it's more embodied way of working through issues.
It also is a means of channeling the libido into the unconscious. The unconscious, so Jung talked about the conscious and the unconscious being, that eternal part of all who we are, the reservoir of all ancient wisdom, that place of magic and of creativity and of intuition, that incredible reservoir of everything dark, but also everything light, but everything that we're not conscious of that is still part of us. And in ritualistic activities,
that 95% of reality we don't experience.
exactly, or that part of us that constantly interrupt us in our conscious life, and yet we have no dialogue with it. And so rituals is a way of engaging in a dialogue with the unconscious. It is actually a practice that allows us to become more objective, but also more prayerful in honoring of the sacred within us. So Jung uses the word channeling the libido. Libido, in a Jungian way, is the flow of energy. Libido is pure spiritual energy from a Jungian perspective. And so channeling the libido means I take my attention and my intention towards the sacred within me. Now, we talk about mental illness and neurosis and these difficulties that we experience, this, don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. This part, well, the unconscious, when it's not being heard, manifest that this driving me crazy, manifest as the neurosis, manifest as mental illness. That's actually a Jungian perspective of looking at mental illness. And so then rituals allow us to give a voice to the psyche, to the soul, so that our mental health can be in proper balance with our spirit, with our soul. And if we in our modern society learn these simple tricks, we would be a lot better off. The pharmaceuticals wouldn't be as successful, though, of course.
No rigged game there.
So solstice is one of the most important ritualistic opportunity, the winter solstice. So we have the candles of Advent. We're up to 2 candles, and I have a little smudge here, and I have my Mercury cup. So the Mercury cup, I don't know if you see Mercury there with his wings on his feet and the caduceus and heading out on his journey. So
even wings on his helmet.
And so how do you celebrate the winter solstice? And we're going to do a smudge here together. And the smudge is really an important way in traditional spirituality, and that's in all religions. If you do a smudge, the smoke that's liberated takes you prayers to the gods. And so how do you celebrate solstice, my dear? I know ritual is a big part of who you are.
I think it changes year to year, but there's always a piece of remembering what I'm grateful for and the challenges I've overcome throughout the year. To find courage to get through the dark days that you're in, because it being the darkest day of the year. So really tending to that inner flame and the light within, because the light without is so minute. And then usually always there's a meditation piece to that, and a prayer and a smudging. Some years I'm outside in nature with family, other years I'm alone, and sometimes it's just me and my partner. That part changes year to year, but yeah.
And so what are your solstice rituals? For myself, I looked at the winter solstice again as one of the most important time of the year for setting intention. So the way I look at it is the
Right.
sun reaches the lowest, level at the winter solstice. It's going to start climbing. So we can really, it's not very far to touch the sun, right? You can, so I throw my hook and my intention to the sun, and then as the sun starts coming back, then I let it pull my intentions and my dreams. And so then I have this intentional practice of setting my goals for the next 6 months, and what I want to do creatively, what is going on in my life, all of the things. So at the winter solstice, I articulate those things, and then I do rituals, light some candles. Of course, this is the favorite time of the year to light candles, and then doing lots of smudging and meditations, walks in nature. All of these parts are, but I make it very intentional. What is it that I want to manifest in this ascension time of the year?
I like that. I really love the visual picture of like hooking onto the sun and then setting that as it comes up to its highest peak for the summer solstice. That's a nice visual.
Well, if you do that, you'll see that whatever intentions you tried to the sun, by the time the spring equinox comes, you're going to see that your vision is starting to get momentum. And then from the equinox to the summer solstice, that's really a very important 3 months of making huge progress in setting that intention. And one of the ways you can do is you can do a vision board where you can do a collage and set your vision for the first half of the year and even for the whole year, and then put it in a prominent place and watch it manifest. It's magic, or apotropaic magic. So anything else you have to add to that?
Not so much. I mean, we're over halfway through Sagittarius season. We just had that Sagittarius new moon, and there's a lot of like it's a fire sign, but there's a lot of mental stimulation and inspiration that can happen with Sagittarius, very enthusiastic energy. And I find that's when the mind can go faster than the ability of the body sometimes. And so neurotropics have been really helpful for me, using things like holy basil or bacopa and brahmi and different things to help kind of calm and focus my mind has been really helpful. And then also going for walks and prayer and apotropaic, sorry, I'm still learning how to say this word properly. Apotropaic practices are also been an asset this time of year for sure.
Cool. So you have a little bit of a slideshow for us, and we're going to do a change of set.
Fun. Stay tuned. Well, stay with us, please. So coming into this winter solstice, it's going to hit its peak at 7:27 in Pacific Standard Time. So just take note of that if you do want to do a good ritual. This is a great time to utilize. So that's a Thursday evening. And this is Martin's cute song here. Mercury retrograde, Venus and Scorpio.
Go ahead, you sing it.
Pluto and Aquarius, and a happy new year. I haven't sung those kind of Christmas carols in a while, so I don't know how to let go. And then this is the chart. So this is the chart for the beginning of winter solstice. So again, honoring when the sun is at the lowest time, at least in the northern hemisphere here. As you look at this chart, you'll notice everything's on the right side there, which is interesting to note. So everything is kind of making a bowl shape. As we're saying here, so moon Jupiter, and then the moon, and then Jupiter Uranus conjunction will happen later. So at this time we have moon Jupiter conjunction coming up. So over that evening, we're going to see the moon go over Jupiter. Your home life could be definitely brought into more awareness and also expanded on. Great time to do a ritual at home, especially with some self-care measures in there. It is squaring Pluto, so there's potential for a lot of challenge, or at least that subconscious really trying to communicate. So again, another really good time to do a ritual. And then as Jupiter moves along later throughout the next few months, it's going to conjunct Uranus. We'll get into that later in the video. But as Martin has cleverly said here, it's going to really support finding creative solutions to complex problems. So there is a lot of complexity to this chart, but also complexity to the times that we're living through. And when there's a square here, there could be a lot of creative potential, but then also that Taurus energy is really pushing for creativity. Uranus, that instant genius, and Jupiter trying to expand it. So really leaning into that creative solutions when you get those complex problems can be supportive. And then because of that square to Pluto, embracing the process of rebirth. So Pluto being connected with the death and rebirth, it ruling Scorpio, and it's also the rage, the ancestral rage, as Martin has, I'm sure you've all heard say many times. Really allowing space for the parts of yourself that want to die and be reborn, or the aspects that maybe you don't want, but you're really noticing are not serving you anymore. And so they may need to go through a bit of a rehaul.
Well, let's look at all of that from the perspective of the table.
Yeah, let's leave it there and flip onto the table.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Voila, set change. And we will slightly change to match. There we go.
Maybe move it back a little bit.
Sure. Move the table back then. Whoa, we gotta move the table back then.
That's good. Boom.
Okay. Perfect. The Capricorn season coming up soon. That would be winter solstice, marks the day sun goes into Capricorn.
So let's go back to what you were looking at. So from the perspective of the moon, of course, I've been reading a fascinating book, Eric Newman's book called The Great Mother. Whoa, really changed a lot, or not changed, but added to a lot of the understanding that I had over the moon, Venus, and the role of the sacred feminine as the mother, but the Venus or Sophia, the support of the feminine in transformation. So when we look at a chart of an event like the winter solstice, the moon is the great container in which we live in is our body, right? So in the traditional astrology, the moon is more important. So we're looking at what the moon is doing, and the moon is in conjunction with Jupiter. And so in Taurus, the moon is very happy in Taurus. It's the sign of its exaltation. And so then we have a very enthusiastic lunar container. So it's Christmas time, and we're looking for that safe, beautiful container, returning to go visit our mothers. And so then this moon Jupiter, now that's going to set the tone for the coming year. We have a very important Jupiter-Uranus conjunction coming up. We'll give you a better, so Uranus is over here, and then Jupiter-Uranus conjunction at the beginning of April. And so that's really an important part, Jupiter-Uranus in conjunction. It's a very enthusiastic, optimistic, innovating, creative. The last time Jupiter and Uranus were in conjunction is during 2012, 2011. A very powerful time of creativity, and very similar events were unfolding, a real pushback, of the what is it? The
Alchemical?
anonymous movement. There was the anonymous movement and fighting against the 1%. And I think that we're really, through those last 12 years, the 1% has certainly gained a lot of power and a lot more wealth, while the rest of us have been struggling. And so then that's going to be a theme. Uranus is the evolutionary and the revolutionary, and Jupiter empowers whatever it touches. And Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is a very, very creative, evolutionary, and so we're going to be seeing that. And so that's that moon Jupiter, and that's what's that saying. What else did we emancipating? What else is the moon doing?
The moon?
Yes. Let's look at the chart.
Well, it's trining the sun when it happens, it looks.
Yes, trining the sun and Mercury.
And well, maybe before we jump here, do we want to speak to the square to Pluto?
Okay, that's what I was asking. So the square to Pluto. Well, Pluto's also going to be very, very important, and we have all kinds of alchemical opportunities surrounded, and I think that that's going to set the tone really for the beginning of the year. We got Mercury and the Sun and Venus and Mars that are getting ready to all make conjunction with Pluto as 2024 begins. And so then the Pluto in Scorpio, and then Pluto coming into Aquarius.
Capricorn.
All
good.
No, Pluto is coming into Aquarius, leaving Capricorn.
Yeah.
Sorry. And then now it's in square to the moon. It's all, and so then that Plutonian transformative and that Jupiterian Mercurian energy, Uranian, Jupiter, Pluto, giving us a really good sense of what the energies are going to be as the new year begins. What else is going on?
We're going to have Sun Mercury retrograde conjunction.
Well, that's a very important time. The Mercury retrograde conjunct the Sun right at the solstice. So that's a combustion. Time isn't all so clear, and yet it's a great time to listen to the unconscious, so then that Mercury retrograde, solstice, Venus in Scorpio, really good time to be focusing through apotropaic means on what is brewing in the unconscious. Not so much depending on our ability to figure out what it is that's going to get us out of trouble, but being attentive to divine guidance, because we can sometimes want to get ourselves out of trouble. And like that famous saying, right? Out of the pan into the fire. And so then we need to listen to divine guidance at this time of the year so that we can clarify our intention and develop a path that is not so much guided by our own conscious attitude, but guided by the unconscious, which really is what we call the spiritual path.
Yeah, just in case your brain and wheels weren't spinning enough like me. Really time for the brain to kind of take the back seat and let it be a tool, but not run the show right now. Listening. The keyword you said there for me is just taking in more than putting out. Listening.
Another really key important factor is the Saturn factor in Pisces, right? So what we got here is we got two sextiles and a trine uniting the moon, Mercury, Sun, and Jupiter, moon. So this is a very good time of manifestation, of creating intention towards manifestation. I think that we're all been going through some fascinating challenges, may we
Mhm.
say, you know?
Yeah.
Somebody said, you know, I would take 2023 in the middle of the lake and sink it. You know, this has been a very challenging year, but out of the ashes of 2023 can come the rebirth that we've been working towards. And it's not only 2023, but we had 2022, 2021, 2020, oh my God. And really 2018 and 2019 were really very important times in our individual growth. And it may just be that 2024, we can have the spiritual discipline to honor our creative needs, but also our needs to become. Jung says that really beautifully. He says, to become what I always have been. That's the process of individuation. And really, it may just be that that's really what we're here to do. That the greatest creative work that we are to come up with is ourselves. And so then to invest in ourselves through practice, through discipline, Saturn, through vision, Jupiter, communicating that solar need to shine our light into the world. That was beautiful.
Yeah, we really do get to co-create with spirit and make our life tapestries. It's a good reminder to be creating the life we want to be living.
Then there's the Venus-Mars thing. And you see Venus is in direct opposition to Uranus. Makes a little semi-sextile to Mars. And also makes Neptune trine, a Neptune trine with the Uranus opposition there, that little triangle. And then Venus, Mars to Uranus as well. And so speaking of Eric Neumann, I'm reading this book that he wrote on cosmos, no, on Amor and Psyche. Fascinating myth that I will be sharing the next time we do a Venus video. I'll share that story. But, you know, the importance of Venus as seeing the transformative aspect of the feminine, Venus as Sophia. Are you familiar with Sophia?
Somewhat.
So when we talk about philosophy, we're talking about philosophia. And then in Christianity and in Judaism, Sophia is the feminine wisdom of God. And so Venus as Sophia, Venus as the knowledge that we need to transform into what we're fully becoming, and realizing that, yes, the moon gets a lot of press, but Venus and the moon are related, mother to daughter, and that whole myth of Persephone. In the last video on Venus, we told the myth of Persephone. You can look that up in Venus in Scorpio, and then Venus will be making a conjunction with Pluto. We're going to be looking at that in the alchemical importance of our times. So
what a neat time to be reading that book on the transformation of feminine when Venus is in Scorpio. Very transformative time for Venus.
Well, the Great Mother book and then this Amor and Psyche book have been really important aspects of my meditation over this solstice period, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. It's important and feels very relevant. To be continued.
And the last thing on that list was the Triad of Transformation.
Holy moly, we need to do a video when Pluto comes into Aquarius. We're gonna do a brand new, I think we're gonna call it the Triad of Transformation, WTF number 2. We did a few months back, we did the Triad of Transformation, WTF is going on. So we'll do the second version of that. And in my studies, I've got some really interesting insights. But again, the sun and the moon engage with that, and you know, it's been in constant orb for the last 6 months or so. I think that that's going to relax a little bit during winter and beginning of spring. But when Jupiter and Uranus conjunct there, it's going to come back into the forefront. And so what we'll see is the Triad of Transformation, but this time with Jupiter in conjunction with Uranus. And I think that that's going to kick it in terms of the enthusiasm we'll feel about bringing about change. So we may see such far out things as elections going the revolutionary way. We can see the revolutionary urge become empowered by Jupiter in connection with Pluto and Neptune, and that's working towards that big 2025 exact alignment with Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, Neptune at 1 degree Aries, and Uranus at 1 degree Gemini, with Saturn in conjunction with Neptune. Now we're at the same thing, but with Jupiter in conjunction with Uranus. That promises to be fascinating.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at the charts yet of that, but so with this Triad of Transformation, when Jupiter conjuncts Uranus at the end of Taurus, is the Triad active at that point?
I believe that for as Uranus is moving retrograde, it continues to go retrograde.
It conjunct at 20 degrees, so I guess it's a little pushing it.
Well, especially now that Pluto will be 1 degree into Aquarius coming into, so then it'll be 11 degrees. So then during the spring, end of winter, spring, they will move out. You know, during the winter, it'll move out of exact orb and come back in at the end of spring, early summer, when Uranus reaches 24, 25, then we'll be in orb again. And Neptune also is moving closer and closer. So, you know, towards the end of the year they're going to, and into the new year, we're going to see that intensifying quite significantly.
Yeah, it's going on for years. I was just wondering, because that would make this spring a little bit potentially crazier than I would look forward to. But if it's relaxed on the Triad a little, then the Jupiter doesn't seem to exacerbate the whole Triad too much. That's
there's something really beautiful about Jupiter and Uranus. We did the video on when the Jupiter and Uranus came really close to conjunction earlier this year. And so we've been looking at that quite a bit. And so then we'll talk a lot more about it as it matures at the beginning of April.
That's exciting. More to look forward to. So, coming back to your
Apotropaic magic, or protective magic, is a type of magic intended to turn away harm or evil influence, as in deflecting misfortune or averting the evil eye. So apotropaic in a wider form, from a purely psychological perspective, it's to overcome this thing about, not letting the sound of my own wheels drive me crazy. It's my craziness. It's a way of approaching my difficulties, my mental illness, through apotropaic means, through magical means. Of course, the zodiac and the astrology is an apotropaic practice. It's an apotropaic magic. And so we talk about, the word spiritual and how we are spiritual people. So what is a spiritual people but a person who does spirit rituals? Spiritual. spiritual means, a spiritual practice means to engage in rituals to honor spirit. You know, so the spirit being the unconscious part of who I am, or the magical part of who I am. So it's interesting, you know, in this day where these days where mental illnesses, you know, of various types is such a, you know, difficult thing, and our society, you know, advocates, you know, the use of antidepressant and, you know, different substances and psychoactives, you know, even the new age, we say, you know, use these substances to counteract your mental illness. And here we have to deal with my mental illness, or to my challenges, mental or spiritual challenges, through an apotropaic means, through the power of rituals, to the power of a spiritual practice. And so it may just be that our mental illnesses are actually because we're spiritually dissociated and we have no connection with spirit and our ancestors. And if we reconnect with those things, then we would find that our mental illness would disappear, and that we would actually become healthy and vibrant people. And a lot of that is the connection to spirit, but also a connection with the ancestors. And so regrounding ourselves in our ancestral line, find more and more people are really drawn to doing that work. It's important.
You see, like, as you're saying, I also had a flash of how with this apotropaic aspect, there's this need to, it puts a bit more onus on yourself, and also remembering that you have the tools to help yourself come back into balance or into harmony and health. Versus when we take a substance, like I work in supplements and herbs and medicines, and I see their help and necessity in sometimes, but I also see how much people will try to always get something outside of themselves to fix what's internally hurting. And so there's a onus of self-reliance with apotropaic practice, which is also really utilizing this time where Jupiter's in Taurus, and there's this need to learn how to become more self-sufficient, to meet our own needs, and to grow in that capacity. And now's a great time to practice that, because Jupiter won't always be there, and it won't always be so easy to, or the energy won't always be there to grow in that means, with such flow. So it's a good way to utilize that as well, I find.
Well, it's an alchemical opportunity for transformation.
That's how I said it. Thank you.
Not a problem. But in terms of what Jung talked about in terms of mental illnesses, in his work on the complex theory, the complex theory is you know, just, you know, the traumatic shocks that we encounter in life form complexes, mommy and daddy issues, you know, abandonment issues. You know, we have these complexes that harass us. And the integration of these complexes is the process of individuation and healing. In talking about these things, Jung talks about what happens with a complex is denied access, repressed. He says that it comes back into the body and becomes a you know, what we used to call hysteria. Hysterical behavior. It's a spiritual, it's a psychological complex that has been repressed and is now expressed as a irrational physical illness.
Which a lot of people would say is like their anxiety. How many people experience anxiety that takes them over, and you go into hyperventilation, or you can't think, or.
So it's the psychological complex that has been repressed and not expressed in a healthy way, and becomes unconscious and manifests as a physical symptoms. And Jung says most of the illnesses of today are of that origin. And then he says, if not all. And so then the psychological or the psycho-spiritual, and, you know, I was thinking about it, you know, what is it that we really are facing in terms of the real manifestation of this crisis that we're going through? If it's not health, you know, We are so unhealthy psychologically and physically as a culture. And these symptoms, physical and mental, take a form in the spiritual and the intuitive, aspects of ourselves. We are not in balance between the four elements, the earth and the water are not balancing the the intuition and the air in a healthy way. And because of that, we have all kinds of psychosomatic problems, whether psychological or somatic or mixed in the blender. And then we're trying to find solutions to it through medication and through substances where we can use apotropaic means to channel the libido into bringing back to consciousness the gifts of the ancestors that are hiding behind the complexes. Ooh, that was deep.
This is a great time to be doing art and music and things that help you connect to that subconscious part. It's also a time that's classically known for art and music, as we get together at Christmas to sing songs and share our gifts together and our inspirations, and then also make gifts for each other. And those are really great practices and ways to connect to your subconscious.
So let's look at those alchemical opportunities for the beginning of the year.
There's some exciting ones.
So when we say that astrology and alchemy are sisters, the alchemist is to transform matter into spirit. And astrology is the kairos, or the important time for that transformation. So alchemy and astrology work together to bring about transformation. And so here are our opportunities.
So as we just had started, Mercury turned retrograde on December 13th. And that was at 8 degrees of Capricorn. It's going to be there all week from the 11th to the 15th. And then it will slowly go back into Sagittarius until it turns direct on January 1st.
So we did a video on Mercury just a week ago. We'll put the link to that video in at the end of this video, and you can go check that out. Then on December 20th, we have Venus opposes Uranus. We talked about that in the chart of the solstice. Then on the 24th, Mercury ingresses back into Sagittarius. And then on the 31st, Jupiter turns direct at 5 degrees Taurus. So now it's going to be moving towards Uranus in quite rapidly. And so we're going to see that that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction become more and more potent as we come along. So that's kind of the immediate stuff, and we're going to do a few more videos on all of the stuff happening to end the year. But what's really important in 2024 is all that's going to happen with Pluto. And so Pluto conjuncts the Sun on the 20th. On the 22nd, Pluto enters into Aquarius. The Sun and Pluto will enter Aquarius together. Woohoo! That's going to be interesting. and then on the 6th, Mercury conjuncts Pluto with the Sun not very far. And then on the February 14th, Mars conjuncts Pluto, and on the 17th, Venus. So the 13th or 12th till the 18th or so of February, we have a Mars-Venus-Pluto conjunction. And then on April 20th, Jupiter and Uranus conjoin. And if you take a 4-degree orb, we're talking about March 26th to May 13th. So those are very important times, and I put all of these into the description of the video. If you want to see these dates, look in the description of the video, and all of these dates will be there. But I think we should flesh out what that means, all this Pluto stuff. What do you think that's going to feel like? Sun, then Mercury, then Mars, then Venus, then Mars-Venus conjunction with Pluto. Basically, what we're going to have is we're going to have Mercury and Pluto and the Sun all entering into Aquarius together. So that's going to be fascinating. And then, as Pluto comes in, we're going to have Mars and Venus.
2 weeks later.
And so that's the beginning of our year, and then that Jupiter-Uranus. So we talked about the Jupiter-Uranus, Pluto with all of these. What is that going to feel like?
We'll find out. Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, those are all of our personal, like that's almost all of our personal planets. So there's a...
It's not almost, it's all of the personal planets.
Yeah. So then...
And during that time, the moon will make 2, 3 conjunctions with Pluto, right? Because the moon goes all around.
During that time, they're only 2 weeks apart. But yeah, at least
there'll be a new moon and a full moon with Pluto.
Yikes.
So yes, so then, so you say yikes, but what is the alchemical opportunity in that yikes?
Getting set on the right path.
Well, powerful time of rebirth.
I bet the more listening and work we do now, with it being the darkest days, and really listening and connecting with our ancestors during this kind of potent time for that, as we're in the darkest days, will really support us in January, later in January, as we have our ancestral rage kind of checking us and seeing if we're listening to following suit with what we were told or what we were listening to.
As mystics, we are prone to develop a relationship with Pluto and with Neptune as well, and with Uranus. If we at all are trying to understand what our place in the world is at this crazy time, our connection with those 3 outer planets is super important. And so I used to give it came to me in my realizations that the great mother, Pluto, was dragging me by the hair, kind of drag me behind, just kicking and screaming, and that I could very well go willingly, and it would be a lot less painful. And so then to go willingly where the great mother, it's a surrender of our will to be in alignment with the will of the great mother versus fighting her.
Reminds me of the quote you shared earlier from Carl Jung, which is, I think it's something like, freedom is the choice to become that which you already are.
Or what you always have been, but also when Jung was asked, what is the difference between faith and free will? He says, free will is to gladly do what you must do. And so Pluto is what I must do in service to the great mother. So then there's a great opportunity. Remember that one thing that we talk about when we talk about Pluto? Whenever we go to a Pluto transit, something is dying inside of us so that we can be reborn to a higher octave of expression. So I think that all of these Pluto conjunctions going on at the beginning of the year will serve really to set the ground for the Uranus Jupiter conjunction.
Death, so the rebirth can happen.
Well, that was a lot. How does that feel?
Potent times for dark days.
But also a time of rebirth. in our process.
Mm.
We hope you enjoyed this video. We tried to put a lot into it, kind of orient you. We shared a ritual with you. We spent some time fleshing out Jungian psychology, and we looked at the beginning of 2024. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for your willingness to work with me. It's always so delightful.
Thank you for always sharing your wisdom, and it's always so helpful to talk things out, but also get to play with your wonderful tools.
Thanks for joining us, you guys. We'll see you next time.
So much love. Happy holidays, everyone.
Whoop, whoop.